Hey, what's going on, sports bettors? Matt Modi here with OddsJam, coming to you with my four sharp bets for this NFL Week 6 slate. So last week, I had my worst week since the season started, I did miss 1 week, so I've done it 4 of the 5 weeks so far, excuse me. Last week, I went 1, 2, and 1, won the player prop, lost the lock in the underdog, pushed the game prop, bringing my total record to 8, 7, and 1. Luckily, still up overall, but up a measly unit after I was up 4 units in the first 2 weeks, which is rough. So today I'll be giving out my four sharp bets for NFL Week 6. For those of you who haven't tuned in or just forget the process, the system of how it works, so I do one lock, I do one underdog, one player prop, and one game prop. The only rules that I have is the lock can't be minus 200 or can't be worse than minus 200 odds. So I can't be like, hey, my lock of the week is that the Buccaneers beat the Steelers, right? That would be too easy. You wouldn't make enough money consistently betting odds that unfavorable. So the underdog just has to be a plus money underdog that you're betting to win straight up. No selling points, nothing like that. Just someone that you think is going to win straight up. The player prop and the game prop are pretty straightforward. The only rule, obviously, can't be worse than minus 200 odds as well. Yep, I think Cooper Kupp is going to go over 0.5 receptions. Not exactly helpful from a betting perspective. The only other thing that I want to mention before I get started is just the Sweat the Bet podcast. So prior to last week, to continue my bad week, I guess I should start off. So OddsJam has a podcast, Sweat the Bet, presented by OddsJam is the name of it. It's available anywhere in which you download podcasts, so Spotify, Apple, wherever. You can download Sweat the Bet. Every week, myself and Andrew Kim, aka the Parlay Doc, we preview the week's best games, and then we give out 3 of our best bets. Prior to last week, I had been doing well. I was 7, 3, and 2. Last week, I had my worst week overall. I went 0-3. So I would appreciate you. Check out the episode, listen to it. Here are my 3 best bets for the podcast. I'm going to try and not choose 2 of the same ones because that's burned me in the past. So the 4 sharp bets won't necessarily be the same thing as the Sweat the Bets. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first place I start with my Sweat the Bets, I just want to check out the positive EV page. Now there are ways in which you can find bets that are still positive expected value, not on the positive EV page, and I can talk about that. But the easiest way to start is just to go to the positive EV page and look specifically for a money line or a spread play for the favorite, obviously. So who I ended up settling on for my favorite, and it's risky because it's the second time that I have backed this team in my lock section. Give me the Bengals money line at minus 130. It's a positive expected value play on Ballybet or Circa. The Novig odds price this at about minus 130.18, so not a massive positive expected value play, but it still is positive expected value. And look at where all the other books are pricing it. And that's the most important part. Circa at minus 130, Pinnacle minus 139, Bookmaker, Bet Online, 2 Sharp Sportsbooks, minus 140. No other book is pricing it closer to the Ballybet and Circa line than Pinnacle at minus 139. It's a clear outlier when you compare it to all of the other books. So for all of these sharp bets, I put a full unit on. So let me go to the Bengals. I'm going to lock this in on Circa. I'm going to take the Bengals money line, minus 130, put a full unit on this one, lock it in for $100. And that is going to be my lock of the day. So in terms of handicapping purposes, because obviously, the math is important, I want you guys to also know why I like it just from a play perspective. The Saints, I think the Saints stink. They're 2-3, as are the Bengals, but they're starting Andy Dalton again for the second straight week. Jameis is out, but they're also missing like their entire receiving core. Michael Thomas is out. Jarvis Landry is out. Chris Olave is dealing with a concussion. He might play at the time of this recording. He is questionable. I think that they're going to sit him out just because of what happened with Tua. I think teams are going to be weary on playing playing a player on back-to-back weeks who just had a concussion, right? Or playing him the next week after getting a concussion. So, and the Bengals, while I don't trust their offense at all, I do think their defense is very good. Their defense has been great all year. They have a top 10 defense. They just held Lamar Jackson to like 20 points, and Lamar Jackson has the number 1 offense in the entire NFL, like top 3. At least it was number 1, at least prior to last week, till the Bengals held them. So while this has the looks of a low scoring game, admittedly, give me the Bengals money line. I just have a hard time believing the Saints are going to be able to pull out the win with dealing with all of the injuries. So for my lock of the day, I will go with the Bengals money line. Now let's focus on the underdog. All right, and so for my underdog, I have identified the Seattle Seahawks versus the Arizona Cardinals. Admittedly, this one makes me a little bit nervous, but I was able to find a positive expected value play, and I can tell you exactly how I know. So one way in which you can find positive EV plays on your own, that if you want to do some line shopping, is you pull up the Pinnacle odds. Pinnacle, as I mentioned, sharpest sportsbook in the world, and you have to remove the VIG. So all you need to do is just go to the no VIG fair odds calculator, which is what you see here, and type in both sides of the Pinnacle line, minus 131, plus 117. So you type that in here, minus 131, plus 117. So that puts any type of, that gives you the no VIG line, right? Minus 123, plus 123. So since we are betting on the underdog, any sportsbook in which we can get more favorable odds than plus 123, that is going to be positive expected value. In this case, that is the FanDuel line at plus 124. So the Seattle Seahawks plus 124 money line is going to be my underdog of the day. So let me go ahead and lock them in for a full unit. Perfect, that bet has been placed. Let me add it to my bet tracker. And the logic of backing the Seahawks, I'm so out on this Cardinals team. I'm just remarkably out on them. I think they are horribly coached. I think the clock management and the discipline, everything about the Cardinals just screams poor organization. They don't do anything well on offense, defense, or special teams. They are one of the worst starting teams in the NFL. They have the worst first half offense in the NFL. And to me, that's all coaching. Coaches come into the game and they script plays. And the Cardinals consistently start slow. And they have such a horizontal offense instead of vertical that, they'll probably put up points against the Seahawks because the Seahawks have the worst defense in the NFL. But the Seahawks are also probably going to put points up against the Cardinals. The Seahawks somehow have the literal number 1 offense in the NFL, according to DVOA. The top rated offense is your Seattle Seahawks. So it's probably going to be a high scoring game. It's got a high over under in the 50s. But give me Seattle. I just don't trust the Cardinals. If it's a close game in the end, I think they're going to do something to blow it because they always do. This is a horribly managed team. Every week, there's some sort of game management, clock management snafu. Cost them the game last week against the Eagles. It could easily lose them a game next week against the Seattle Seahawks. So give me the Seahawks money line plus 124 as my underdog of the day. And for the player prop, another play found on the OddsJam positive expected value page. What we're looking at here is Skylar Thompson under 214.5 passing yards. For those of you who don't know who Skylar Thompson is, he is the actual starting quarterback for the Dolphins this week, as they have had injuries to both of their actual starting quarterbacks. Tua Tagovailoa and Teddy Bridgewater are both hurt. In comes 7th round rookie Skylar Thompson. Now, this should be for a unit play. For those of you at home who is tailing this bet, you should lock it in for a unit. Unfortunately, the sportsbook that I want to lock this in at, Typico Sportsbook, which has a positive EV play, won't even let me get 50 on something. They normally don't even let me get 10 on something, which is unfortunate. So in this case, they did let me get 10. So in this case, I was only able to get $10 on it. But for those of you at home, unit sizing this, it should be for a full unit. So the math behind it, of course, positive expected value play. The no VIG odds price this at minus 117. Typico offers it at minus 115. So the gap between those two numbers gives you your positive expected value. And another reason why I like it, if you click open a play on the positive EV page, which is what I showed you before with the lock, look at where every other book prices this. Pinnacle, sharpest sports book in the world, minus 134. Every other book, DraftKings, minus 135. Caesars, minus 139. Another thing you can do, which is cool, is if you open a play in a new tab, so you view the event page, you open in a new tab, it pulls up where every sportsbook is pricing plays for this total itself. So not just the individual odds, but the total itself. And every other book that prices it, PointsBet has it 4 yards lower at 210. FanDuel and FoxBet have it 6 yards lower at 208.5. Another thing I like, PointsBet favors the under 4 yards lower. Now, obviously, the higher the yards go, right? Like a number all the way up at 214, the 1 yard difference isn't going to matter as if you're betting on something that's like over or under 12.5, whatever. But I like the fact that you're getting a huge outlier on this number itself, on the under 214.5, when you just look at every other book. And I like the fact that every other book that prices it significantly lower, a decent amount, maybe not significantly, is a little too much, but prices it lower than what we are getting it at. And one of the books that prices it lower has the under as the more favored outcome. In terms of handicapping, I don't think you need to be an expert football analyst for this one. He's a 7th round rookie in his first ever start. Like, he came in the game, he didn't look horrible when he first started last week against the Jets, but in the second half, the wheels kind of fell off. Now, the Vikings, who admittedly aren't a good defense, but they have some tape on him. His receivers are banged up in Waddle and Hill, and I just think that it's going to be a tough game for Skylar Thompson. So like a 7th round rookie making his first career start seems like someone you should fade, even if it's the low number of 214.5. So this is going to be my official player prop, Skylar Thompson under 214.5 passing yards, minus 115 on Tipico. Should it be worth a full unit that you should bet on this? And now let's finish it up with the game prop. And for the game prop, the play that I have identified, another positive expected value play found on OddsJam, highlighting just how valuable it is to use a tool like OddsJam, to have a tool like OddsJam at your disposal. Over the first half total, over 22.5 in the Bucks versus Steelers game, minus 110 odds at BetMGM. So let me lock in this one as well. Should be worth a unit. We'll see how much BetMGM lets me get on this one. So they let me get $10.70. Which is very frustrating, but it is what it is. But for those of you at home, using BetMGM should be for a full unit. So I mentioned it's positive EV, right? No big odds. Have this at minus 112, essentially. BetMGM offering it at minus 110. And then look at where every other sportsbook prices this. Pinnacle, minus 122. BetOnline, minus 118. And then we have DraftKings in PointsBet at minus 140 and minus 130. If we open this one up in another tab, we'll see where all the sportsbooks price this first half total in general. And as we can see, about half of the other books price it at 23. Betfred, Caesars, DraftKings, WinBet, FoxBet, they all price this at 23. Then it looks like FanDuel, BetRivers price it at 23.5, a full point higher. And then from a handicapping perspective, this Steelers defense stinks. It's unfortunate, but they're so banged up and they're just so bad. They're losing. They don't have TJ Watt. They don't have Minkah Fitzpatrick. They don't have really anybody in the secondary. And this Bucks offense is starting to get rolling. They had a slow ending to the game last week against the Falcons, but 2 weeks ago, 31 points against the Chiefs. They started off hot against the Falcons last week. So basically what we need is 3 touchdowns and a field goal. I could see Tampa Bay putting up 17 points alone in the first half, and then you just hope the Steelers can get 1 touchdown, which I think they can. I think Kenny Pickett has some juice. So I like this one a lot for my game prop, which is going to be the last play. So to do a quick recap, and then I'll get on out of here, we have the lock of the day, the Bengals money line at minus 130. That was on Circa and Ballybet. We have as my underdog the Seahawks money line. That was plus 124 on FanDuel. For my player prop, we have Skylar Thompson under 214.5, minus 115. That is on Tipico. And then for my game prop, we have Bucks Steelers first half over 22.5, minus 110 odds at BetMGM. And that is going to be it. So if you're tailing these 4 sharp bets, let me know. Would love to hear it. Hopefully I can get back in the winning column after how bad last week was. And then of course I would appreciate it if you check out Sweat the Bet presented by OddsJam, hosted by yours truly and Andrew Kim, aka the Parlay Doc. Would definitely be helpful and recommend you check that out. Would appreciate it as well. And then that's going to be it. So comment on the video with your feedback. Like the video to, if you actually liked it, I would appreciate that as well. But other than that, enjoy week 6 of the NFL and have a good one.